Hey, hello everybody. It's our last lab with the tutorial. Next week we'll have a final test, and in 2 weeks you're presenting your projects. So that will be the last recording in this session. And today we'll be talking about multiple cameras in Unity. So we'll be playing with dividing screen, making image in image, and also applying different things to the image the way I showed during the lecture last time, right? So what I will do, I will I will use the 3D game that we created some time ago, and the one with the terrain and some effects, right? The volcano scene. And we'll start with this one. We'll add also some packages from Asset Store, so we have some props that we can use in our game. You have a question?
Is this included in the final exam?
Sorry?
Is this part included in the final exam?
No. Okay, so that's our game. Let's see if it works. And our guy is walking, looking up, down, making some noise. We have some particle effects added to this scene. 3 things that I want to show you today with the multiple cameras. The first one will be simply dividing view in 2. Right. So let's say we have 2 players in our game. We are building multiplayer game. What we can do, we can show different views, right? We can add additional camera. We have actually 2 cameras in our scene. This is the second one. We can have many cameras if you want, right? Let's add the camera somewhere close to the player, right? So somewhere here. We'll add new game object, and we'll create a camera. We'll rename it so we know what this is. Second. Camera 2 simply. Now we have a few settings. We can decide what is the clear flags. You remember what this setting is doing? We can use skybox, solid color, depth only, or don't clear. What's the effect if we change this setting? Anybody remembers from the lecture? This tells Unity how the screen, how the buffer is cleared. What does it mean that we have empty scene, right? And we can use skybox. We can use plain solid color, right? The way we did it in 2D development, we had just plain blue. We can use depth only, which means that it's really showing only objects, nothing else. And we can leave it as it is without clearing the buffer. Now, because these 2 cameras will be used to show the same scene from different perspectives, right? Let's say for 2 players, in both cases, for the first person camera and for the second camera, we'll use skybox, right? Background color, this matters when we select the solid color, right? This is the color that will be used to clear. The culling mask decides which elements of the scene. And we can use layers to eliminate certain elements from the view. So for example, if you're building UI, as a 3D component, 3D object in the scene, you can eliminate UI from the regular gameplay simply by disabling it from this list, right? Making sure that all your UI objects are part of this layer and then disabling it for your main camera. The type of the camera will be perspective. We are playing 3D game. Field of view will be standard. Clipping and clipping planes standard, the same for both cameras. What really matters right now for us when we want to divide the screen is the viewport rectangle. By default, it starts in 0, 0, and it takes the width and height is set to 1, which means that we are taking the whole screen. Now, if we want to split screen, we should make it smaller, right? So, for example, width will be 0.5. And we can do the same thing for the camera that is part of the player, making sure that also smaller. Now, for one of them, let's say camera 2, we also need to move it, right? We are cutting width in half, so we should move our X, right? Now we have two views next to each other. If you want to do the same operation for, if you want to split your screen not vertically but horizontally, you just do the same operation with Y. So now if we play the game, one camera will be static, right? And the other one is the one that we have control over. So this way you can divide it into multiple, having multiple cameras, you can divide it into many pieces, right? You want 4 cameras, you can divide your screen in 4 and have those cameras showing images in one screen.
Sir,
Yes.
The other camera, can you have it facing behind you, so as he's walking, it's moving with him?
Sure, you can. Yeah, you can. So where we are. Let's make sure that we are somewhere close. Yeah. So if I rotate this camera, I need to rotate around X 180. Right now I'm facing back, and I can add this camera to my first-person character. Right. This guy has the main camera, and also it will have the secondary camera. Right. Now if we play, quite confusing, right? But it works, right? You have eyes also behind your head. Okay, let's get back to the previous setting. Okay, so that was splitting the screen. Another thing that you can do, let's set the camera, let's reset the settings for the main camera and also for the second camera, 0 and 1, right? Full screen. I may project the second camera to the secondary display. I may say that the target display is display 2. And now, not turning into the full screen, or actually I can, because I will see those settings. This is my display 1, and this is my display 2. If your players are playing online different screens, you can use different displays, right? Okay. And another thing that you may want to do, instead of showing or dividing screen equally into pieces, right, into halves, or projecting to different displays, what you can do, you can build image in image, right? So the secondary camera may be small, let's say 0.2 and 0.2, and maybe somewhere in the corner, top, bottom, whatever, right? It's additional information that you display to your player. Let's make sure that the depth is set correctly. The secondary camera needs to be on top, right? So 1. Oops. And I think I need to change the display, right? Because the second camera is still projecting to the second display. Let's get back to the first. Now I can see the image in image. So now this can be used actually with this as my back eye, right? Let's say here, or even with the external object, right? So with the FPS controller, because it will move with me, but it won't go up and down and round. See, it's always showing what's behind me, but not necessarily the ground. I'm not interested what's on the ground behind me, but I want to see my back mirror, right? So that may be a useful feature in our game. And let me see if we are still sharing. Okay, again, let's get back to our settings. So we know how to split the view. We know how to embed image into image. We know how to project to different displays. Content to our game. Let's go to Asset Store. Asset Store is here. And let's find, later, not now. Let's find some tools or some weapon that we can use in our game. Crazy weapon. You like my weapon pack? Let's import this. Okay, we have our objects. The plunger, that's the one that you want to use?
And are we gonna do something with it? Is there...
So we'll carry it. Now you'll be marching with a plunger, but that's really not what we want to see, right? The plunger is sinking in the ground. Same thing if we walk, right? It will be also going into the trees and doesn't look good, right? So what we can do with that? Sorry? Yes, we can add rigid body. That's for sure. Right, so we can add at least collider, right? Let's make it a mesh collider, right? It's still sinking. And it's still going through the trees. If we add rigid body, as you said, maybe without gravity, we don't want it to fall. Oh, non-convex mesh collider with non-kinematic rigid body is no longer supported. Make it convex then. I lost my tool. Where is it? No, first thing, it's too big for us, right? If you look at the scene, let me show you the player. That's the size of the player. Can you see it? And that's the size of the tool that we have, right? So definitely the tool needs to be smaller. That's more like it. Probably even, oh, not the player should be smaller, the tool should be smaller. That makes more sense. Let's see. Okay. Hey, where are you going? See, now when I hit the ground, it starts moving on its own. Right, and if I walk into a tree, well, it interacts with objects, but not necessarily in the way that we want. Right? So what we can do, we can create, well, first put it in another layer. Let's remove it from the object. We can put it in another layer. We can even place it. Where is the other camera? It's here. Right? Let's try to put it in the same position as the other camera. So the position is, oops, this. Plunger. Yes, and that. Okay, so plunger is hanging somewhere here. The camera, which way this camera is pointing? This way. Just to make our life a little bit easier, we want to see what's going on, right? The plunger. Let's for now make it perspective. And let's make sure that it's showing everything. So not only UI, but everything. Okay, so this is our plunger. We want to have it a little bit closer and lower, somewhere, something like that, right? And right now we don't really need a rigid body. We can remove this component. We don't need a mesh. I mean the mesh collider. we have our camera. We have our plunger shown by the other camera. Now, I can change the setting of this camera to show depth only. So it's showing only objects. You see that there is no skybox. If I turn into skybox, then we have this bluish sky in the back, right? We want only objects. So it will be depth only. And now I want only the plunger. So what I have to do, I have to make sure that the plunger is in some other layer. Let's put it in UI. Not exactly UI, right? But let's say it's a UI element. Now my camera can show only UI. So I switch to nothing, and then I select UI. I have my plunger only, right? Another thing that I can do, or I should do, I have to make sure that the depth is set to higher than my main camera. So I'm setting it to 1. Okay. Let's go back to display 1 with what we see. Let's switch to display 1. Now the two views are combined, but they're combined in a way that I see my main camera, and because the second camera is showing only the plunger, nothing else, it's kind of like a transparent background, so I can see through, and I can see the plunger as well. Right, so if we play right now, we should be able to carry it and not, and it won't interact with trees or anything else. Simple. And on top of that, you can even add canvas with some extra information, right? You can add game object, UI, say text. And let's take it up and to the side. Let's make it bigger. Let's also make the font size bigger and brighter so we can see it. Different elements, different components coming from right now from 3 different cameras and canvas. You can also use canvas to add elements like the center point that you use to target, right? So you have your gun, for example, and you have a target point, right, to allow you to better navigate in the scene. Or if you're building a flight simulator, I was showing those examples in the lecture, right? You can have all those controls and displays showing your altitude and position and so on, right? That can be done with the canvas, right? With elements, UI elements, right? Things like props can be carried this way, right? So they're not in our way when we are playing the game. So in most cases, what you will do with that, you'll be swinging it. You can add script to do the swing animation, right? Or you can animate this and trigger the animation with the with the script, right? But it won't really interact with those objects in the scene. It will just add motion. Any questions? No questions? So right now we are finishing our labs, right? That will be the last thing that I want you to learn from Unity. You can explore other topics. You can explore the book and other tutorials about Unity. There is more, right? What we did in the course was just a introduction, right? You know a little bit about 2D. You know a little bit about 3D. Now you can start putting this stuff together. I'm giving you time right now to work on the projects. If you have questions related to the topics that will be covered in the final test, that's also a good time to ask. As I said yesterday in the lecture, the final test will be focused on 3D physics, so collision detection, applying force, modifying the object, so rotation, position plus forces, right? And a little bit of UI. Nothing fancy, no fireworks. They take too much time to create.
UI is just showing the points and two other things, force and angle.
Yeah. Well, basically showing stuff that you control, right? Because you want to give the feedback to the user that I'm rotating or I'm increasing force or you got points, right? So basic information. Okay, let's stop the recording.